and welcome to another episode of the Vialle MX post-race show. The SMX World Championship postseason has just departed St. Louis's Dome Americas Center. That was the second playoff, the double points edition, so the stakes raised considerably. We had a relatively new SMX venue. We've not been in a stadium yet. The track layout itself was unique. There were some controversial moments in the racing. All in all, there's a lot to get to on this episode, so this should be fairly action-packed. And of course, the action-packed episode is made possible by our sponsors who pack plenty of action into their respective disciplines, those being Decal Works, Yamaha Motor USA, Yoshimura Motorex, and Fox Racing. Thank you to all of those companies for their support, and thank you to all of you for watching, listening, and engaging once more. I'm your host, Lewis Phillips, fresh off of St. Louis, and joined by Michael Lindsay once more. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Got to go ride my dirt bike today, so I'm not going to complain.
Isn't that every day for you?
Well, I ride my dirt bike?
Yeah,
I wish.
Most days, no?
No, once a week.
Really?
You actually think I get to ride more than once a week?
No, I don't know, 2-3 times a week?
No, lately I've been shooting with Stevie a lot. I mean, I go to the track.
Okay. Well,
I don't know. Race season once a week. Off season's definitely 2 times a week.
Oh, well, we learn something new every day. We're 1 minute in and we've already learned something new. So, St. Louis, for winners, Joe Shimoda and Hunter Lawrence. We'll get to them shortly. But first of all, the event. The second playoff is always going to be in Central America. It goes east, central, west. That's kind of the layout that we're following with these playoffs. First time in a stadium. A very unique track, certainly more supercrossy, but still a fairly big departure from a stereotypical supercross. Your first impressions, your main takeaway from playoff 2?
I love the fact that we did something in a stadium just from, not getting to be there in person, but the fact that we're back into a later schedule. You get more of an opening ceremonies. You just get a different, stadium offers a little bit of a vibe that I think is a little more familiar. That's part of I really enjoyed. You said no stadium, but we did do LA Coliseum in the first year.
Oh, I don't count that because it's not but it's not a supercross stadium. That's in a different category
where was the
to
first
me.
ever? Where was the first ever supercross?
Oh,
that's right.
No, that's
where did we race supercross for? Where did we race supercross for years?
It doesn't count.
Oh, that's right.
It's like going to Charlotte Motor Speedway. You could say, well, they did an MXGP there. It's in its own category.
They also did a supercross there.
Yeah, it's in its own category. Like it's unique to the season. St. Louis isn't that.
But I like the vibe from that standpoint. The weekend overall has offered more interesting storylines than I expected by far, of course. So from a standpoint of what it means to the SMX Championship, of course, it's been very valuable. From an on-track racing product, bland to me. I was very disappointed coming into it in the fact that we figured this out the week before, but the fact that all we were doing is going out to the convention center and turning around and coming back in. I was, of course, hopeful for more of a mix. I was very excited for having the Supercross Stadium feel, but having something a little different out there. I know there's challenges, reasons they didn't do it, but I would love to see it reattempted in the future. Let me state, I do hope we have something similar to this in the future, but a little bit more hybrid-esque. Just the shorter lap times, bland course, bull corners were nice, but outside of, I felt like the racing I was watching, I was excited about was just the controversial side that came from it. Like, okay, Jett's coming from a bad start. Let's watch that. Hayden's riding without a front brake. Let's watch that. We had the racing with Hunter out front, getting to strut stuff, and Eli and Jett and Kenny close here, but the actual battling between them wasn't that memorable for me for the year. I feel like I will remember St. Louis for what it caused to the storylines to go into Vegas. I have a feeling I won't remember anything about the racing in about 3 more days.
So I have many ways that I could go with this, but let's start here. Is this not a lesson, once again, that applies to Supercross as well as what we had in St. Louis? That ultimately, track design, point structures, whatever you want to manufacture, ultimately, it doesn't really matter, and we don't have control over the racing, because if the top guy gets a good start, the racing is terrible, i.e. 250 Moto 1, 450 Moto 2, and if stuff happens, like the top guy gets a bad start and so on, you have great racing. 450 Moto 1, 250 Moto 2. Like, it kind of reinforced to me that we go around in circles so many times about this track layout is great, this rhythm section was great, oh, the separation there. Ultimately, none of it really matters, and the top riders are always going to rise to the top, so it all comes down to circumstantially whether they have an easy go of it or not, and that ultimately is out of Feld, the track crew, everyone's control. So I don't know, I'm kind of just like, I don't blame St. Louis for this.
Like I said, yes, I agree with you in the sense that at the end of the day, you can try as much as you want to create the racing between the track, between the conditions, a lot of things. Yes, you can create more iconic moments. Like, there's a lot of races that maybe aren't even that great realistically when you go back and look at it, but some of the features, some of the sections stand out in my mind. They give me, a zap of a memory of the place where, like I said, a lot about this layout will not give me any of that. This kind of reminds me of the conversation we had post Unadilla, where I brought up, like, okay, we have a track that, for outdoors, we went a very hard pack, no ruts, easier in a sense. And again, the gap from first to 10th in that race was the same almost as every other race of the year. So yes, you look at St. Louis, and one part of it was interesting to me. I remember watching Friends with Jett having his issue right at the beginning. I was like, they were all betting, will he come? How far will he come through? And one thing I listed off, I was like, man, I really don't know how far he'll come through because the track is quote unquote easy. It's an easy layout. I don't know how much separation there will be. And yes, it was hard to find that separation, but the best rise to the top always. So to your point, yeah, we can try everything we want. The only thing this takes me back to is, as corny as it is, one thing you can do with racing is like what Arena Cross did. Most different series done this, but it reminds me towards the end of Arena Cross in its heyday is the reverse grids for the second mode. That's really all you can do is force the best riders to have to overcome hardship. That's all you can really. That's all the promoter can really do, or the race format. Otherwise, we're just along for the ride to see what happens.
Yeah, like maybe the most iconic race of 2025 will be the San Diego Supercross. Superb race. It will go down in history. It's a benchmark. Ultimately, it's because both Eli and Jett had bad starts. If Eli had that start and Jett had started 5 positions ahead, it's probably a boring race, and it's not even referenced on these podcasts or anywhere else. It all just simply comes down to track position and how the field shakes out at the end of lap 1. And yeah, apart from a reverse grid or some sort of idea that's quite a departure from traditional racing, I don't know what you can do to fix that. So once again, I don't hold St. Louis's layout to blame for, again, 250 Moto 1, 450 Moto 2. I was certainly concerned going into the night show because it was basic, it was fast. Looking at it, there weren't necessarily places that jumped out as opportunities to make time or pass, but clearly the best riders found ways. Jett doubling out of the off-camber before you exit the stadium. The predominant sand turn, the third sector, was where guys were losing half a second, gaining half a second, which is substantial. Max Anstey gained a chunk of time on 5 through 7 by doing the quad, So, like, even the most basic of a stadium track.
I was going to say, even Jett, the split lane looked predominantly inside. I think most people gave up on outside. Jett was moving to the outside when he was catching Eli and Kenny because, the whole don't follow. And he was still making it work. The best find a way to make it work. It's 2 excellent scrubs and carrying, a practice in carrying momentum, but still entertaining to watch.
Yeah, I to be honest, I do feel like, to a degree, I would prefer this over the drag strips, I think. Like, maybe it was because I've not been in a stadium since May and this kind of brought back some of the Supercross Anaheim 1 vibes. Maybe it was just that. But I think, as you alluded to, capturing the show in opening ceremonies, the way a stadium looks on TV, it's just quite spectacular, and you can't replicate that elsewhere unless you go to a radically new venue like an amphitheatre, like a beachfront, where it's got the stadium atmosphere is replaced by the wow factor of something radically different.
So let me hit you with this. When you think of SMX as 3 rounds, like we talked about last week at Charlotte, I think we're both a fan of a race continuing in the North Carolina area. We both agreed. We disagree on some factors that were more negative, but we agreed on the positives. I think we both said in current situation, we found it to be a good start to the championship. Now, when you go to St. Louis and again experience a stadium atmosphere for an opening ceremonies, do you think the SMX should start with either a stadium atmosphere or should it start with more wow factor, something to again set off the playoffs, the SMX, to bring all this to reset our minds coming from the Pro Motocross Series? Do you feel there should be more wow factor in the beginning or should that be saved strictly for the end?
I don't think that really matters because the beginning and end are so close together that it's ultimately the same thing. The beginning and the end almost aren't too different. I do think that St. Louis's stadium isn't what Feld have in mind as the ideal SMX location that we're just going to hammer. I think it was a matter of circumstance, as I've alluded to. I forget the name of it, but they did get quite far down the road with an amphitheatre for this year, and it kind of fell at one of the final hurdles. They discussed with beachfronts and whatnot the idea of doing a pop-up event and bringing the grandstands. So I do feel like St. Louis was a backup option for this calendar year, and there is Monster Jam in the stadium next weekend, so suddenly it becomes clearer and clearer why we ended up where we did. But also it's a strong market for Supercross, and they were deprived of Supercross this year. So in theory, why not? Which leads us on to this point. The crowd was light. Surprisingly light. There's not really a positive way to spin it. Yes, it was loud. They were certainly into it. But just from the eye test, a lot of empty seats, certainly nothing comparable to a St. Louis Supercross. All I can think is you've got the Nations in a couple of weeks, just 4 hours up the road. You had Ironman a couple of weeks ago. You had the Indy Supercross. There are a lot of events around that region that people have obviously already gone to this year. So maybe this was just one too many, or maybe people do prioritize the Nations over this. I would lean to that for the reason for the light attendance. But any ideas in your mind?
A couple things. What you just said is a big one. If you're anywhere in the middle part of the country at the moment, I would think if you have a limited budget, if you have a family, times are not as easy as they've been lately. Yeah, if you're a real fan of the sport, you're probably prioritizing Motocross of Nations. Also, the fact that if you've, again, anywhere in that Midwest, if you're, depending on where you are in location to St. Louis, maybe you've been to Red Bud and Ironman already this year. Yes, like you said, they were deprived of a Supercross, but they had racing.
Yeah, and they had the Indy Supercross, which is close enough.
So yeah, the other thing is maybe a little bit what we alluded to last week. I mean, it ended up being the opposite of what we've joked about, but kind of what it felt like this year is maybe a little bit of a predetermined outcome. It felt very Jett heavy, very Haiden heavy. You know, that can always affect the fan that's on the fence of, do I want to spend the physical money to go to this race, and it maybe be a tick of a letdown, or maybe not be the experience I was hoping for, versus, hey, I can watch it at home, and if it turns out great, which, again, we had a very different outcome. I think that can always affect it. And then the last item is of the SMXs. Correct me if I'm wrong because you were there. A little bit less, like Charlotte had a good turnout on Friday because of the Friday activities, the practices, the podcast mashup, the really big autograph open sessions, things like that. So there was a lot more. If you're a fan, you got kind of more of a 2-day experience to Charlotte. Was that really on the cards for St. Louis?
No, Friday was closed. But we had this conversation pre-Charlotte. Let's not go back down this road again.
Yeah.
But Charlotte was packed on Saturday.
Yeah. No, it was.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
I felt like you were alluding that Friday was almost stronger than Saturday.
No. I was alluding that Charlotte did turn out well.
Okay.
It exceeded my expectations. Okay. And honestly, I walked through the pits on Friday. I was like, man, this is really good. And I remember that's been their point with these a little bit. And that's where, we went down the whole rabbit hole, so we won't return it down too much. But we alluded to last week, and hey, is there things you could do with the qualifying format to put even more, like, can you do something on Friday even more? Because I do think that 2-day racing is missed in U.S. compared to, worldwide to GPs. I do think there's something to be said for a really quality 2-day event to make a family atmosphere, to get people to spend the money, to get their money's worth to come to these things.
And no camping at this one, which we do at the others, so maybe that's it. Yeah, there are a lot of factors to consider. I actually had this conversation with someone from Feld which I had never thought of. Perhaps the light crowd simply came down to the fact that we don't realize how much of the Supercross crowd is made up of people who just know that there's a dirt bike race each March, April, don't listen to these podcasts, don't go to the websites, and actually just had no idea that for the first time there was a dirt bike race in the stadium in September. Like, maybe that's a bigger percentage of the live attendance than we give credit to.
No, I agree with that. Even in, being in California, supposedly the original heart and soul of our sport in a way, you go to an Anaheim 1 Supercross, if you really just BS with random fans in the pits, you will run into some that barely know it's a series. Like, they know that there's a crap ton of Supercrosses in January, usually in Angels or something like that, and they just know to show up and watch some racing. Like, they aren't that in tune with it. So I can very easily see, hey, there's a crowd that knows Supercross kind of exists. They know there's a race in their area that's cool to go to, or they got buddies that convince them to go. Yeah, I hate to say it. You can we try to make as much noise as we can, but there are probably people that are still not, that would attend the St. Louis Supercross, that still may have not had a clue this race was happening.
This is a loose link, but I do think it's worth mentioning, even though I may come under fire for it. And there's a two-parters list. First part relating to the crowd. Going back to the very, very first SMX event in Germany in 2016, when no one attended, even though you had Dungey and Hurlings and Marvin and star-studded lineup.
What was there, like 30 people?
Maybe 11. No one showed up. And again, as you said, star-studded lineup this weekend, a much bigger crowd, but relatively speaking, quite weak. Is it possible that the term SMX just doesn't resonate yet, and people are still like, I'm not really sure if I want to buy into that yet, because it's still so new? Like, is there some comparison there? Because going back to the Germany event, there's no explanation for Germany, a very, very strong market in Central Europe, having no one turn up to a race with Dungey and Hurlings and Fevre and Geyser and whoever, Weimer and Searle and whoever else.
No, I think something we don't give enough credit to, and I think you see a Nationals where we were celebrating almost every National celebrating its 50th running. It's just got a lot of history, and it's got staying power, and that helps.
Okay, second point to this. So when I first entered the venue, walked into the press box, the track did pack a bit of wow factor to me, simply because I hadn't looked over a stadium and seen something like this. So I was like, this is... Immediately I was a bit engaged, and, it packed a bit of a unique twist to me. Except it did distinctly remind me of that Germany event. So Friday night I went back and watched the highlights, read some interviews. And my biggest takeaway, so that Germany event in a stadium, didn't go outside, but a soccer stadiums are fairly big. 51-second lap times, doubles, and that's it. Just double. But the sand was deep. It was seriously technical, and Dungey lost a position because he got to the end of the sand straight into a sand turn and basically sunk. So maybe we're simply using Supercross sand. I wonder if we can source real beach sand and make that predominant sand turn go into a sand straight with a wall jump and then another sand, make the sand turn and following sections so long that carrying flow from point A to point B is just near impossible, and there's your separation.
No, I understand what you're saying there. I agree, because when you look at the material, even, the corner that went out of the stadium, they tried to use some sand, but it had a hard base. I mean, when you look at the pictures of them building in, there's this much material on the ground. That might be a little bit of exaggeration, but you get what I mean. Yes, I understand what you're saying. Yes, true. Bottom of the sand, because even the sand corner we're talking about, I think part of why the quad after it became so good is they kind of got to the bottom of the sand section and had, a bit of base to, not so much base that was slick, but down enough in material that they could drive up the face of that thing a lot easier.
Yeah, and again, the sand was good, but just distinctly in this Germany race, there was a wall jump in a sand straight, and the ruts on it looked like Lommel. I've never seen ruts in a sand section like this in AMA Supercross, and it's got to come down to the texture of the sand.
Example, for anyone who did not watch that race or forgets, the track was so more motocross built, though. Like I said, deep sand, more mellow doubles. That one of the biggest mistakes for U.S. riders showing up is that they brought Supercross suspension, and it was miserable on the track. It did not work that well. This is kind of back just to the last conversation I had, but this just popped in my mind. Do we not give promoters enough credit when they move rounds and markets for what you said? Just people kind of know there's dirt bike racing and they show up because it's been there so long. And an example I have of that is the Atlanta Supercross forever was one of the biggest ones on our circuit. We even did years where when it was in the Georgia Dome, I think it was like mid 70,000s capacity, and we would sell that thing out. I remember when we moved to the Atlanta Motor Speedway, because it had been in Mercedes-Benz Dome for a few years. Attendance had weakened, but the venue was really expensive and a little bit worse to get to a place in downtown. I thought, okay, we're going to go out to Atlanta Motor Speedway, and this is going to be a great race. And it never really caught on. Do you get my point? Like, even markets are big. Like, basically just not giving enough credit, and not to sit here and butter up Feld too much, but the simple fact of, like, I hate to say it sometimes, I think it's tougher than we think.
Yeah, we as humans are creatures of habit. And like, I think the goal or the hope is that one day Birmingham will become a very strong Supercross. But ultimately, it's going to take time, isn't it? It's like me opening a fast food burger chain with McDonald's burgers, exactly. Like, copied the recipe, and I'm next door to a McDonald's, and people aren't coming in. And you're like, why not? It makes no sense. It's just creatures of habit. It takes time to kind of generate that foot traffic, even if you are a proven entity in Feld. And okay, SMX is new, but it's really not new in the nature of, like, you know what you're getting from the event because the promoters are so tried and tested. I think we don't give that enough credit. Like, speaking of McDonald's, I was reading something last week about how Italians are quite snobby with their food, so McDonald's doesn't get much traffic. So McDonald's opened up a boutique restaurant with a different name.
Sold their food,
served their food, and it was packed, and they made a killing. And that kind of, I mean, I don't know if that goes towards my point or counteracts it, but either way, that supports the fact that we're creatures of habit, and preconceived notions do carry weight. So finally, we will get onto the racing. 22 minutes. But I had a lot to say about this event. Finally. Okay, the mulch didn't really do much as far as, like, separation. It didn't really... I expected it to become much more chattery and, like, some square edges. I expected it to just become a lot rougher and a lot harder to handle. It wasn't that. It was slippery, and that's it. But I like it. Let's bring mulch to Supercross. Looking out over the track and seeing dirt, sand, mulch, having that difference everywhere you look is nice. Let's bring mulch into Supercross now. I'd happily take that as well.
Let's give it the tagline from this podcast, is Lewis saying, bring mulch to Supercross.
I don't actually know if mulch is a technical term, but that's what I'm running with. Anyway, so that is St. Louis's SMX round in a nutshell. Now the racing portion. Hunter won, and as is the case with most of Hunter's 450 victories, he's not getting the credit he deserves.
He's completely overlooked.
Yes, Jett and Chase started far back in Moto 1, but he had Kenny and Eli right there from the start, and he broke them pretty quickly, managed the gap and was unchallenged. It was as dominant as you could possibly want. And then second Moto, although while he was running third, he had the overall on lock, which I believe he did know, he still gave Eli all he could handle for a position that was ultimately meaningless, which I think that deserves credit in itself as well. Now we head into Las Vegas, very similar to last year. It is winner takes all between the brothers. Hunter has the momentum by virtue of the most recent victory. Where's your gut taking you?
Still, I mean, the favorite is clearly Jett. Is interesting, though, of course, that I was going to bring this up. Last week we had this discussion who would be the most likely, who still had a chance of challenging Jett for this, and you said Chase, and I tried to throw out that Eli still had a chance, and we both did not mention Hunter, the man who tied his brother for the championship last year.
Look, I have said it many times, I'm not the greatest at math. Look, we're doing single, double, triple is quite difficult. I'm confused how Hunter is this close in points. The seeding, he was far behind in the seeding. He lost a lot of points last week, and then he gained the least amount of points possible this weekend. I don't quite understand how that's brought him so close.
Well, especially I'm trying to look at right now. So last weekend to Jett, he lost
7.
He lost 7 points, and he gained 6 back this weekend. But he started with
7.
Did he start with a worse, and then he started with a worse. No, wait, points adjustment. I'm looking at the sheet, and I think it's wrong. Because his point seeding, what was his point seeding compared to
17.
Jett?
He was
17 to Jett's
22.
22? Yeah, I'm really stuck on this one.
I feel like
it's almost all it is we're back to the points adjustment, where basically is where we've ended.
When I first opened the championship standings, I genuinely was taken aback because I was expecting him to open it and be like, "Oh, so Jett's won." And that's not the reality. So I guess that means the format works. Keeps you guessing.
Or the reality is the first 2 races just canceled each other and we're right back to where we started in terms of the points adjustment. Is pretty close to where we are.
Either way, I will endeavor to become better at math here.
He started 5 points behind him when we reset for the series, and he is now 6 points behind him.
I am very surprised that Hunter went for it as much as he did in Moto 2. Like, even going into the last turn, he sent it in there quite aggressively. Like, it was on the verge of being like the dirty move in the final corner.
Even last corner, I thought he was going to fly over the corner, because the way the camera did, especially as you follow Eli out and you see Hunter kind of sliding the top, I'm like, he may have just shot over the corner trying to get this done at the end.
There was a panic rev. I don't know if that was a panic rev to scare Eli or a panic rev of like, oh my God, I'm going to go off the track. Maybe we should have asked him that. But no, great for Hunter, and he is criminally underrated. Great for Honda as well, who remain unbeaten in 450 SMX, which is just, I mean, I know it's only 8 rounds, but the further this goes on, the more I'm just like, what are we doing? Like, how is this even possible? And then even if you go back to the start of Outdoors, Honda have won every race but one, and that was Washougal, which is insane.
One thing I don't know how to feel about, and I wanted to ask your opinion, is in the broadcast, Ricky tried to talk about this mostly off the back. It was during the first race because of Jett's bad start. He was trying to tout how much the rest of the teams have caught Honda on their starting ability and how much that gap has narrowed, and that the Honda doesn't have the advantage they once did. I don't know. I don't know how to feel about that. Jett got a bad reaction for once and got pushed around, but still Hunter and Jett came out on top with starts. I really don't know how to feel about that. I don't know if it's really changed.
Yeah, I haven't watched the race back, but my initial reaction is I don't know what data supports that, because
he said something, we have data to show it, but it's on the broadcast and they're running through it quickly, and I was kind of like, just off the top of my head, maybe there's something that shows consistency amongst the other OEMs, but I'm like, I don't personally see it. I mean, to me, the starts are still owned by 1 Jett, 2 Hunter, 3 Honda.
I mean, I feel like if we patched Chase or Eli into this call right now and relayed that to them, I'm pretty sure they would laugh and be like, no, this is like, I'm terrible at the gate.
Help.
Although Eli here recently, I say recently, Budds Creek was bad, so I guess the last 2 weeks, he has become a fairly consistent starter. So
I feel like it's been going in waves with him for the last 2 or 3. I mean, since he got to start, like, got better for a while, and then it kind of went down and then got better. It just comes in waves for Eli a little bit.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to dive into with that, but he doesn't want us to, so we'll stay away. I did ask,
maybe not just you.
I did ask Jett this, just Jett, because I was aware of the fact that it was actually last time we were in St. Louis for a Supercross, Hunter and Jett did interviews with me where they explained how the Honda 450, no matter what, when there isn't some grippy dirt for it to eat into out the gate, their start advantage goes away. So that first start, I was immediately like, maybe this is it. Because although St. Louis has got great dirt, the start is still fairly hard pack and slick.
And the dirt was, even though St. Louis has good dirt, I think, was it Eli mentioned it to you? The whole fact that just it wasn't as good this year.
But Jett kind of brushed that off immediately and said, yeah, it's true, but that isn't the case. Look at the second moto start. We were first and third. And I was like, yeah, can't argue with it. Jett said his bad start simply came from he had a good jump, but he was too far forward, so he span, and that was all she wrote. Yeah. Although I tried to get this out of him, but I didn't quite get it. Like, that's great and everything, but 20th? Like it wasn't.
Did you watch the replay of the first corner in slow mo?
No.
Like he says, jump is okay, spins a little, ends up instantly getting sandwiched between him, Barsha, and Jacob, and then him and Barsha, kind of Barsha's fault, collides with him 4 times in one corner. Bounces off him, just kind of keeps, like, Jett's trying to make it work, and he just keeps getting bounced off of Barsha. He basically got hit like 4 times by the same rider.
I did watch the replay of Shock going down in the first rhythm section in that moto, and lost in the moment on me is the catalyst of that was Shock colliding with Chase in a manner that was eerily similar to Vegas last year. Like, I mean, I need to go back and watch Vegas, but I looked at it and I was like, that is a carbon copy. And wow, we're very lucky that Chase didn't go out once again in a similar manner. But we'll get to Chase. He's a little bit further down the results this week, so give it a second. But no, championship-wise, we both say Jett?
Yes.
Yeah. It would be cool to have an upset, but just on a fairly basic track, Jett made the difference. No one, including Jett, expected him to make that much progress in Moto 1. So what's it going to take to stop him? Because starting last isn't it.
I will state, though, Hunter's pace in St. Louis, anything happens to Jett in Vegas across the 2 races. A little bit of a bad start again, getting bumped around. I mean, just the intensity out Hunter. There is at least I will say the hope is there. If something happens, we may have a great brotherly duel, in a sense, if Jett has to come back from a few positions, because if it's not Jett getting the start, it's going to be Hunter. So at least there's hope for Vegas. It opens the door.
Yes, and the hope would be that they can rely on their Yoshimura exhausts, as can you, if you head to yoshimura-rd.com and see all that they have to offer for your motorcycle, as well as all of the other accessories and whatnot that they've got going on over there. Thank you to Yoshimura for their support of this podcast. I don't know if I have much to say about Eli, but I will link it to something to do with Jett. And I wanted to ask Jett this after the race, but I didn't quite know how to articulate it. And equally, I don't really know how to do it cleanly here. But I'll try. So the first moto, Jett obviously made up an unbelievable amount of time on Eli. Like, it was ridiculous. Obviously, he didn't get Eli, but that was a rider he got to, which no one would have imagined in the early stages. Then in the second moto, they start 1 and 2, and Jett can't quite break Eli. And he certainly doesn't pull away parallel to the amount of time he gained in Moto 1. So is that Eli learning something between motos? Is that Jett riding down to the competition, as we theorized time and time again? Like, the difference between time gained by Jett on Eli in Moto 1 versus time gained in Moto 2 didn't quite add up to me, and I felt like there had to be a reason on one of the riders' sides to account for it.
One part that got mentioned on the broadcast I actually agree with, in a sense, expanding on it, is there was a lot of talk that it was Jett, Hunter, and Eli on the scoops, and a lot of the other guys went away from him.
I'm not quite sure 450s.
That was the discussion point. I believe, unless I'm wrong, that Jett stayed, Eli stayed on the scoop the whole day. I believe Jett and Hunter did as well. I agree with the fact they made on the broadcast that Eli has way more experience than any of them of riding like very hard pack style SX on that style tire. And if you watch at the beginning of the moto, I do agree with you. I don't think Jett, especially early in a race, is ever really willing, if he doesn't have to, doesn't ride away from his competition. I also saw part of it that Jett did look like he was making a few more mistakes or struggling for traction in places. There was just a few places he would lose drive. Eli looked more consistent, and I think it comes also down to, how adaptive Jett is and how quickly he learns and picks up things. They stayed there for a while, and I think he figured out the conditions and the tire and a few more, and then started to put it together, because I noticed the points of where he would spin coming out of the corners, where he was making mistakes. He started to change his angles and his lines a little bit. He started to point and shoot where he needed to with that tire, and then he started to work away from Eli, where early in the race, I think Eli had the advantage on that. I saw less mistakes from Eli, less traction breaks.
Random fact that has nothing to do with what you just said. In the last 10 450 races, Yamaha have finished third. In 9 of the last 10 450 races, Yamaha have finished third, which is very random. Once again, like between Jacob and obviously Eli, Kind of cements to you the stranglehold that Honda have on this class and this situation. Obviously, Chase factored in there last week, and Washougal, for instance, and other races. But it really makes you kind of sit back and go, oh, okay, this Honda duo really do have quite a tight grip on the situation here. Roczen made a marked improvement over the previous week, as expected. The second in Moto 1 was very impressive. I actually expected him to fade at a point. Early on, I was kind of convinced that there was no way he would hold on to second, so credit there. And then fifth in Moto 2, he kind of just did what he could with his start. Nothing to write home about, but equally nothing to criticise. I think that's just about what you would want to see out of Kenny, and I think he would agree as well, as on Friday he told me that he isn't ready to win and that isn't a realistic ambition.
Yeah, I thought the first moto, particularly, like I said, was fantastic. Again, I was watching with a group of friends, and one of them does ride a Suzuki, so he was very pro Kenny's position, and a few other friends made the comment that he would probably fade, and it never came, number one. Number two, part of that I do play maybe a little bit, and do you agree with me? Like, the track didn't hold a lot of intensity. I felt like because it's an easier layout, there's a few breaks, which I'm not giving that as the reason, but it was a small part. I'm like, okay, Kenny has a little bit more of a breathing room here. It's not as chattery. It's not as nasty as it could have been because he is more limited on prep time than some of these guys. But on the other hand, yes, fantastic performance from him, because I didn't think he was going to per se fade, like really lose ground, but I did think that Eli was going to get him in the first race. I did think Eli was going to get to him quicker and get it done. So I was very impressed that I thought Kenny would finish on the podium, but I actually didn't think he was going to hold on to second in that first race.
Yeah, because I think an intricacy of that first moto is that Eli wasn't all over Kenny the whole time. Kenny actually maintained the gap, which means he never made a mistake. He never opened the door for Eli to get close enough to try anything. So that tells you how stable he was. He also said that in the week between Charlotte and St. Louis, he was doing 2026 testing with Suzuki Japan technicians. There was electric start conversation once again. That's top of his wish list for 2026. I don't know if he signed yet at Suzuki, but I think that it's certainly far down that path, and I think that the potential of an electric start is a major factor in that, as it was at this time last year and even the year before. So I don't know if we get it, but we're still dangling the carrot.
I don't know, I'm trying to remember the man's name to save my life, but he was very involved with the Yosh project back in the days, JGR, all that. Him and Wheeler and another technician I recognize were at Charlotte and went on to work with him. They were posted as working with him this week. Didn't Kenny also comment outside of the electric start? I thought I heard say somewhere that they actually, from the Suzuki Japan side, there was also some chassis and suspension related things. I don't know if that's, parts like clamps, linkages, or maybe some bracing of frames or something, but there was comments about maybe them bringing some other stuff other than just the electric starter to try.
Yeah, I don't have it written down what he actually said, but he did say it was quite a major test, and it was mainly on Chiz's side, which at that point you kind of know that it's some serious development stuff, because if it's clickers and tweaks and whatnot, then they're just giving it to Kenny. But it sounds like Chiz was really put to work to improve the Suzuki package. And to be honest, maybe this is unfair, but with my current assessment of Suzuki, anytime I hear that Japan's involved, I'm like, oh, that's great.
Well, again, I mentioned it before, and it's part of why Kenny's re-up has taken so long this time. Talking to Larry, like, there's, some advancements in Kenny's pay. There's advancements in Suzuki's involvement with HEP on this re-up. So there is more commitment from Suzuki Japan than there has been, pretty much since they exited the JGR program. So that's positive to see. I'm sure some people wonder, why is this electric start project taking so long? I'll give you the really short version, is because it's not built the way they're going to have to do it off the ignition cover. Basically, on the flywheel side, they're having to add gears. Even when the starter isn't engaged, you're still operating accessory gears. There's a lot of things that change the power character when you do that. If people remember back to when Roczen was HRC and he would not add the electric starter when it was optional on the 17-18 cases, and he stuck with the Kickstarter, him and Brain both did that because the engine acted different and had, a different amount of inertia and response when the electric starter motor and accessory gears were added. So that is something they are working through. It isn't just as simple as, is it durable and does it last? It's also how it affects the engine, the power characteristic, and the inertia.
Webb was unhappy with his first moto, but happy with his second moto rebound. And similar to Kenny, I think a 5th overall, a 4th in the second moto is about the peak of what we can expect from Webb in his current condition. Obviously, coming back from injury, easy to forget that. Hampshire was unhappy with his starts, said he has absolutely no idea how to fix them. He said if this was a 250, he'd have loads of ideas, but he really can't even give one sort of idea of how to resurrect that issue. So I think he's a little lost there, but he also was very clear that he is on the base setup that the team gave him to start SMX with. Like, he has not tested, he has not done anything to improve what he's got. So I think based on all of this, I mean, it goes without saying, but I think the initial signs of RJ in a supercross setting on a 450 are similar to outdoors, overwhelmingly positive.
I would say, I mean, based off Charlotte more this, but since it has more of a supercross feel to it, I mean, even minus what you just said, I still think this is extremely positive for him, especially where he was vocal towards the end of Pro Motocross that he would not be as good when we got indoors. He would not be as good, he felt like, in a supercross situation. I mean, yes, he's behind the bigger, maybe a little bit more from last week, but I mean, still ahead of Chase for the weekend. Jacob, Savachi, Ferrandis, definitely very experienced people. We'll get to Chase in a second, but even some of the other names, like, if this is the baseline for RJ indoors, this is a really good starting point. And again, this just keeps going back to, I hope, especially as so many of these guys age out, maybe this opportunity from RJ will cause a little bit of a changing of the guard over the next year or two, as teams will recognize, like, hey, championship or not, I mean, yes, he has a championship, but recognize, hey, might be worth it start to take more chances on some of these 250 guys. It actually goes well.
Equally, I think it's too early for this, but at some point in 2026 Supercross, this will be a good question to ask team managers, like, seeing what RJ is doing, presuming it continues on this trend, are you kicking yourself a little bit of like, maybe I should have gone to him a couple of years ago with a 450 offer, you know? Like, because ultimately, yes, he stayed down in 250s for a long time, but part of that was because V450 teams as a collective weren't that interested and weren't knocking on his door when proof is in the pudding that maybe they should have been.
Take our quote-unquote regular season champion, Justin Cooper. Jay Coop was he won a 250 title. It was still a stretch for Star to do it. He was kind of in this weird place where, is he going to deserve a 450 spot? Is he going to earn his keep? Yeah, last night wasn't great, but I think we can all agree Jay Coop on a 450 has been a really good thing so far.
Yeah.
So,
is it unfair to say that it's unfair? No, I'm not even going to ask the question. It is unfair for me to say that I am more encouraged by RJ than I am Jay Coop, because I think Jay Coop has very much been what I thought he would be on a 450, maybe even slightly less, whereas RJ has already exceeded expectations, which naturally prompts excitement and all of that good stuff.
RJ has exceeded expectations for how quickly it's come around, but I still look at, me and you are both, I want to say hard. In one sense, you could say we're hard on Jay Coop, but we have both repeated multiple times on over here. We have a great deal of belief in him. Back to 2 years ago when we were basically saying, Cowie, anybody who isn't committed to a 450 guy long term should put a commitment to this guy when he didn't have a long term commitment from Star yet. Yes, I agree with your standpoint a little bit, but I think as a whole together, they do give me a lot of faith. Like, yes, RJ has shown a great deal in a short amount of time. You could say Jay Coop hasn't maybe reached where he should be yet, but I think as a package of the two of them together just overall gives me more proof to hold up and be like, do it. Like, to any of the 450 team managers, like, if you have a guy you're considering, let's say, just going forward, a Shimoda, a Kitchen, some of these guys maybe aren't, they keep coming up short on 250 tiles for weird reasons, but we know they're really good. Like, just give it a chance. It's probably going to work. Proof's in the pudding. It's working out pretty good. Again, the next one I'm waiting for is Jordan Smith's 450 transition will be the next one I'm going to kind of track in that sense of, like, following to see how it goes.
Motorex is known for high-quality engine oils, and they also have an entire line of clean care and lube products to keep your bike running strong and looking great. Maintenance made easy with race-proven Motorex clean care and lube products, and from one Motorex rider to another, Chase Sexton. So, full disclosure, I spoke to Chase this morning, didn't talk to him last night, no interview, none of that, but I did talk to him this morning, briefly. I feel bad for him, but that's just the human side of like I like. You could tell from his Instagram post, I think, that he's taking last night quite hard because that was a little bit of an outpouring of emotion. I felt. I'm still not quite clear on what happened because we more spoke generally rather than like I wasn't firing like, so what about this? What about this? I'm still not even entirely certain what happened on the last lap. Although the sector times indicate no crash because each sector is on average 5 seconds slower than the previous lap. So it's a whole lap thing rather than one sector was the cause of the loss of time. I don't think he was stoked with his bike. I think that he was searching a little bit, and I don't know. Honestly, it wasn't great. It was probably, honestly, it was maybe Chase's worst 450 showing ever.
Well, I'm confused, and correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know where this originated from, but I saw comments coming into the weekend that Chase, was it in press day that he commented that this last week had been the most comfortable with setting or something? He made a very positive remark about where he felt like he was at with the bike coming into the weekend, correct?
That's like the last 2 or 3 weeks. He also was saying it pre-Charlotte. He was also saying it about Charlotte, like very happy with how the bike reacted throughout Charlotte's event. When he made that comment on record on Friday, it was before practice, but again, said it was the most enjoyable 2 weeks he's had on his entire KTM tenure.
So that to me was, like you said, adding to the head scratch. I was very taken back by the performance. Of course, this is a small piece of the puzzle, but in hearing that coming into it,
well, equally, the first Friday practice, he was really fast, fastest rider overall, I think. The first quarter of the first moto, he was holding strong, marking him against Jett. There wasn't really any change there. Chase wasn't pulling away, but Jett wasn't gaining. They were fairly mano a mano, and then it just kind of went away. Putting it together with what Tom was telling me after the race.
I'd say, are him and Tom in a similar situation?
I feel like the frustration and these showings are coming from... Sorry. I've got a tickle in my throat. This is all very emotional for me. I think that there is some unpredictable nature with the KTM, both classes right now, and that's causing the balloon to burst at the most random moments, and I think that's where you're seeing these rides from both Tom and Chase and the frustration come from, because I don't think that either of them are entirely clear when they sit on the start line of which direction things are going to go, and we'll get to Tom, but he was quite revealing about this.
Well, I guess the surprising factor is we know that both of them have faced, shock fade or shock failure issues of some sort, but that's been mostly tied to pro motocross. So, kind of the feeling we've had is we get indoors in a sense that it's maybe not as much of an issue, but it's sure between the two of them seem to rear its ugly head. The one factor we have to get back to, and I want to ask your personal opinion. So what happened on the last lap? Just everything went out the door, the kitchen sink, the whole nine. Because I'd heard something again. The broadcast like, they think he went down. He did not go down, correct?
Well, the broadcast has no footage of him going down.
Yeah.
And as I say, I checked sector times because normally you can tell a crash because every sector is regular and then there's one bad sector. There isn't one of those on that last lap.
They're just all bad.
So potentially he crashed in the first sector and then just didn't really, charge. That could happen.
Yeah.
Or I don't know, something went wrong. I mean, so obviously I wasn't really paying attention to Chase on that last lap because the race is finishing. Hunter was sending it in on Eli in the final corner. I only figured out Chase had dropped to 10th when he was in the last corner. He came over the finish, stood up and looked back at the rear of his bike. Like, he was like looking behind like, what the fuck? So, puncture? Shock? I don't know. The KTM PR does not have a quote from Chase, which, as a man who's done PR in the past, if there's not a quote from a rider, it's because said rider is so pissed off that they are refusing to give a quote.
They are not responding to phone call or text to add.
That's a little trick of the trade. If you're wondering on a rider's mindset, if you don't see their name or quote in a PR, it's not good.
They're either not good or they're in a hospital currently.
But a PR said, A tough start in Moto 1, posting an inspired result that saw him claim 5th before finishing 10th in Moto 2 as a result of a late race mishap. So that must mean crash. Or is that just a general term because they were like, something happened?
Bike mishap, maybe. I don't know. It is shocking because, again, same thing. The broadcast is very focused on the top group, and I'm watching the finishing order. And what would have been the first position that was it when Webb crossed the finish line would have been the takeover? Wherever when I saw the name, I'm like, uh-oh, where's Chase? And then you're just watching name after name. You're like, okay. And then they cut to him riding, they caught him on the broadcast more after he came over the finish and, just kind of riding down and kind of looking around, but no visible dirt. And I was at that point, like, my first thought was, it's got to be something with the bike. I don't think he crashed unless we're talking about just super, super basic. We hit false neutral and like got stuck in a corner, fell over in a corner going so slow we didn't collect anything at all.
The conversation that I had with him lent towards wasn't quite happy with my bike. So I don't know. But we'll get to Tom because Tom really we had a breakthrough with Tom on this whole deal.
Okay, I'm gonna this is a big jump ahead and I'm gonna throw it at you right now. Are we worried about MXON at all?
No, because I've spoken to him about this and he told me I'm doing MXON because I want to do it, and that is my race. Like, I'm going there for me. He's in. He's we talked about that.
Yeah. Take it off DEFCON 5. Take it off DEFCON on 5. Everybody, we are okay. We are racing. There is no questions.
Yes, because this came up because I said something like, why just not skip? I think this was before SMX because I think it started because I was like, why not just skip SMX and like end the year here? And he was like, no, Nations is for me. Like, Nations is for me. But yeah, curious case of Chase Sexton on this night. J Coop is having a rough SMX with bizarre issues, stalling it in the first turn. He tried to run it in on Coop in the first moto aggressively, didn't quite work, and I think he wishes that he probably did it more so and kind of finished the job. But J Coop's also proving that the top seed really doesn't help you if things aren't going right. It's not much of a cushion to lean on, which is a shame because he did have a red plate just 1 week ago. Jumping down a little bit, I need to dig into this, but Barsha said in the press conference on Friday that he's not riding in the week anymore because there aren't enough resources to make him happy with his practice bike. It's like, okay. And then again, in the curious,
we're too busy on the Ducati.
In the curious case of the PR, so he says that in the press conference on Friday, and then out of nowhere, his PR quote says, all in all, I'm looking forward to practicing this week. So I'm like, so has someone told you to say that?
That's a little too exact.
I don't think I've ever seen a rider be like, can't wait to go to practice. Like, let's get this practice day done.
Talk about practice?
Especially at this point in the season. Valentin Guillod. So I think this will be our last 450 point, but Valentin Guillod. Interesting because this was his first, in a sense, American Supercross stadium event, whatever you want to call it. One, he told me twice across the weekend, I was lied to. No one told me SMX was going to be this gnarly. He said that he spoke to Roman Pep, and he confirmed that last year, Charlotte as well, the jumps were much less peaky, much more safe. This year, he said that both builds have followed a much more of a Supercross trend with the jumps. So he reached out about this. And then I was concerned for Guillod after the race because I said, you survived your first stadium event. How was it? Like, what did you think? And he went, it's just tough. Like, there's nowhere to rest out there. And in my head, I'm immediately like,
oh no.
I'm like, so there's a couple of big doubles. A normal Supercross Valentin, there's not those. Like, there's less straightaways, there's less big jumps.
There's these big rhythms, and sometimes you turn out of them, and you're trying to breathe before a very big set of whoops.
I was very concerned by this comment from Valentin.
I am too, because I have very high hopes for him next year, and my hopes may have just gone down a little bit.
Well, no, but equally, a 13th in Moto 1. Like,
no, it's... It's excellent. I think so far for him.
And of course, we need to say something about Yamaha Motor USA, and I'm saving their little spot, their moment in the limelight for Guillod, because when I spoke to Guillod on Saturday morning, he's draped over his bike with the Yamaha Power Tuner app open on his phone. And I said to him, "Do you have any idea what you're doing?" And he said, "No, not really, but luckily this is really easy to use. So if someone points me in the right direction, I can put in the information and make it work." Like he said, it's surprisingly easy. So what better advertisement for Yamaha Motor USA? Privateer power. A privateer is making use of the stock tools that you two have accessible. And it's a foreign language. He's new here. He doesn't know what's going on. He said, "I can figure out this app." So I feel like that's a glowing endorsement. And to be honest with you, Yamaha should send their marketing team to the finals and maybe do a bit of a campaign with Valentin around this. Also, I did get Valentin a map after first set of practices, which I didn't find out if he used, but I did get him a map and I sent it to him and said, "This may help you." And he said, "Thank you." He immediately replied with "thank you." So look at that. Two mechanically inept people just trying to figure out SMX.
Together. Beautiful.
I don't think there's really much else from 450s. I'm happy to move on.
Is Dean Wilson still alive from the PTSD?
Yes. Yes, he is. And once again, he said that he tried to just race Vegas and he requested to just race Vegas. And to that, I say, come on. Like, you really think they're going to go, "Yeah, sure, just you let us know when you're ready to come on out"? No, like what? That's never going to work. That's never going to work, Dean. Moving on to 250s. So the story here, similar to 450s, is not the winner, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Although I will say Joe's win under the weather is pretty cool. But yes, the story is not the winner.
Okay. Well, we will get to Joe. But first and foremost, everyone saw the incident between Haiden Deegan and Levi Kitchen on lap 1 of the second moto. Kitchen was consequently handed his first strike, a written warning for aggressive riding. So notch number 1 on his belt, and if this happens again, it will be docked points or a penalty of some kind, whatever. Deegan wasn't stoked after the race, as everyone saw. I perhaps have a little controversial take on this from both sides. My Deegan side is everyone saying, well, he dishes it out, he has to expect it. Yes, Deegan dishes out a lot off the track, but aside from Davies and Shock in Birmingham, I can't, and I realize I've just listed 2 examples, but it's not like Deegan is just slamming people every week and, is out of control. So, I don't know if I lean into that so much. Equally, though, I don't think Kitchen did it intentionally. I think it was a racing incident, and I think it was another instance of shit happens. I don't think Kitchen was expecting Deegan to cut down that tight or lean on him as much.
Cut back that tight. He was on the top rut.
No, but I think
Kitchen went across 2 ruts.
I think Kitchen expected Deegan to see him there and then ride the whole berm, which stand it up in the top.
You do realize Levi went to there was no room.
No,
Levi went.
No, hold on. No, yes, but this is when they were already crashing. I'm pulling it up. I swear, Deegan was not in the furthest rut when he started to cut down. I'm almost adamant. But either way, I'll pull this up and I'll check. But I do think it was a racing incident to a degree. Do I think that Kitchen went in there to make an aggressive pass? Of course. That's obvious. And watching it doesn't look like he got whiskey or it was out of control or, it was just some random incident. But I don't think he went in there thinking, I'm going to clean Deegan out. Because also, yes, they've had their history in the past, but that's almost ancient history at this point. Have Kitchen and Deegan even seen each other on track this year?
Well, so one note against this, I'm going back to the bonus of watching the broadcast this weekend. James texted Levi after the race while they were still doing the post-race podcast, and Levi said something happened earlier in the day.
Okay, but to my point, just to clarify, Deegan is in the second rut from the outside. I think Kitchen expected him to see him and go all the way to the top of the berm.
But okay, so watch the ready, Tim. Before Levi executes the corner, while Levi can still see, he can also see. Again, we're in ruts. You don't just magically, once you're halfway through one, be able to commit to the next one. He also could see very clearly that Haiden did not go to the top of the corner. In fact, doesn't look like really anybody's going to the top.
I've lost. Oh, here it is. I just clicked off it by accident. Yes. Okay, but I still think Kitchen would have anticipated Deegan
Checking
pausing,
up, like seeing,
pausing, standing up. I think that was why it looked so violent. Fair?
a bit. So the obvious. So, for instance, I think it was Callan asked Mitch from Payne about it, and I agree with Mitch's take. Like, hey, if you're on his team, if you're PC, anybody on there, I think Levi has had a lack of aggression or wanting to get things done. So there's a positive there from their end. Like, hey, Levi kind of needs to get out of his own way early in the races and make things happen. I agree in the sense that I don't think it was super, it's not super intentional from my perspective. However, it's just one of those ones where you look and go, this was poorly planned out. Like, this was not going to work. And I get, like, Mitch, a couple guys say the same, like, hey, if he stands it up more. Tough one, though, is if you're in Hayden's position, particularly that style route, look how Hayden's engaging it. Like, Hayden's got a massive amount of lean angle and already on the throttle probably. He definitely should be able to see Levi coming, but he's also in a position where it's kind of hard to brake and stand a bike up when you're all the way over to this point, already on the throttle. Like, there's not... You can sit there and go, oh, Hayden should have stood it up. I also don't know how possible it would be. He could try to check up, but I think he would just end up on the ground.
Equally, on the flip side, there is a moment where Kitchen could have gone, oh, fuck, this isn't going to work.
Yeah.
So both sides, again, does that not define a racing incident?
To me, it falls racing incident, yes. The
reason it looks so violent is because Deegan was already committed to the exit of the turn, so was on the throttle, and from someone I was talking to, Deegan was running a very aggressive motor package, where in first gear it's very aggressive, very bitey. So I think that there's probably quite a lot of power coming out of that Yamaha rear tyre as he was exiting that berm, which added to the spectacular look of the incident. Racing incident.
Because you can see, I would say the point where Hayden really knows it's going to happen if you stop it. Like, there's a point where he starts leaning on Levi, and at that point he's already very committed, and it's starting to push his bars. Like, about the point he really does know Levi's there is a 0.1%, like 0.1 second chance of, like, I'm going to get the hell out of this idea.
But to be clear, I'm not saying Deegan should have done that, but I do think that's what Kitchen was anticipating.
Yeah.
Do I go 50-50? No, okay, I'll go 60-40 Kitchen side, but I do really believe it was a racing incident to a degree. Like, lap one, and to be honest with you, if this is Kitchen and Vialle, no one's talking about it. It is just lap one craziness.
There's this video of course, Hayden pulling up to Duff after the race, and I don't know what he's saying. I haven't found any with volume, but he's, chirping a little bit, like he looks a little fired up. But I will say I don't know. They both went back to the rig. I haven't seen anything negative from post-race. I haven't seen anything that really was like, even from Hayden's persona afterwards, like definitely fired up, but he didn't look like he is like, the difference between fired up and full-on wanting to mother F somebody. I don't know. People say Hayden dishes it. I don't know. Until I see something that's really abrasive coming back, it seems like he took it just fine.
From someone I spoke to, Deegan has said that he is going to stay quiet this week. And so I don't expect to see much. I mean, again, this is Deegan, so do I expect by the time this has gone out there to be an Instagram video with trash talking and edits and
Conor
McGregor?
As we're recording, I have clicked on his IG. There is no Jake Paul. There is no Conor McGregor. There is nothing of that nature.
Okay.
Yeah.
But also, if that happens, don't laugh at me, but that's what I was told. Is that he said that I'm going to try and stay quiet this week. So championship.
I'll say on the back of this conversation, now we have something really interesting.
Yes, 10 points for difference between Joe Shimoda and Haiden Deegan, triple points in Las Vegas, which means if Joe wins the overall, because remember, we do not score motos individually, that's almost irrelevant. If Joe wins the overall and Haiden is second, Joe wins this by 1 point. So Haiden has to stop Joe finishing second. Now, to run through my list of thoughts on this. 1, can Deegan go out and win the race? Yes, of course. He's a favourite.
Absolutely.
He can control the narrative, whether he starts last or first. He can bunch. Maybe we see a return of a bunching. He can play with the field because he has that much of an advantage. I strongly believe that. 2, does Haiden try something? It's
Just
almost difficult for him because he's lent into this danger boy persona so hard that if he were to play it from a true sportsmanship perspective and just go out and win and let the cards fall, it would almost damage his image because it would be so un-danger boy-esque, you know?
I don't know. His core fans, it's not going to affect any of them. They're going to be like, yeah, he's the bigger guy. And a few people might actually go, okay, he didn't do the thing we thought he was going to do. Okay, like, some people might respect him for it in that sense.
Yeah, but does it not take a shine off of the shit talking and everything? I don't know. Well, not shine because there's no shine on it, but, you know, edge.
I guess it lives in his head of like, does it really matter? Walks away, I've won 2 of these. Does it really bother him or affect him? In our aspect, does it really bother anybody that he doesn't win the 3-round championship? Anything random can happen in?
But going back to what we said in the preview, is Haiden at the point of immortality where any loss is considered earth-shattering? I think we can lean into that quite happily. Haiden or Joe, who wins the title?
Oh, I'm gonna waffle it. I'm gonna straight 50-50 because, like I said, I do think Joe is clearly the second best guy in the series and can win. I mean, he won with circumstances and on an ill night. I mean, Joe can win. I know Seth can step up. I know guys can step up, but barring something happening, I kind of lean towards a Haiden 1, Joe 2. So I guess I say Joe wins the title.
Does that also mean you're saying no shenanigans?
No funny business. I kind of lean towards no funny business, but then again, we'll see. I don't know. Where are you at?
I think I follow you and lean into no shenanigans, but also I feel like it's Degan. There has to be shenanigans because this is his image. You can't run around telling everyone that you are the alpha and then not do an alpha move in a do or die scenario. No?
Or you just create your own narrative. I've already won 2 of these things. Who cares? I've got the 450 contract. I got demoed. Whatever. I'm still the best guy this year. Especially the thing is, whatever. I'm going to go destroy the world next weekend. Something. Like, there's always a narrative you can spin off and create or move into.
Let me make the question broader. Are there shenanigans from Degan with anyone, i.e. kitchen payback?
I mean, I think you stay okay. If we're saying we're staying quiet, I think if there's an opportunity that's easy to take, I think more of a qualifying thing, but I could be wrong. I think there's some shenanigans. I think there's something to maybe remind Levi. I think we stay quiet to the moment it happens.
Okay.
To you, same question.
I mean, again, if it's Degan, like, is this not his image? Like, have you not painted? It's almost like that guy who is like, oh, I fucking hate that guy. If he comes near me, I'm going to knock him out. Yeah, don't let me near him. I'll knock him out. And then he comes over and you're like, what happened? It wasn't the right time. You know, like, you have to match the talk at some point, don't you? And there's been so much talk, and this is almost the first time where we are going to see if it is all talk. Mm-hmm. I think that's true. I think this is the first time in Degan's career where we find out if it's all talk. So watch this space, I guess. I mean, it's added an element to the finale, which we otherwise wouldn't have, so that'll be good. But to give Joe his flowers, 2-2 on the night, overall winner. Again, 2-2 scores are almost irrelevant because we only give points to the overall. He was very sick, very under the weather, didn't even attend the post-race press conference, which tells you all you need to know. Didn't go on the
podium either. Well, did he? He did the second moto. He did a very short podium. He skipped it the first race.
So yeah, great damage limitation. I mean, the ultimate damage limitation on a tough night. Put himself where he needs to. And yeah, I think this is just a continuation of Joe being great, which is now a trend that's stretched over weeks and weeks, months and months.
At the rate this continues, this just has to put you in more and more of a position where whatever Joe does next year, coast-wise, outdoors, minus if he ends up on the same coast as Haiden for West, like, he's got to be the developed favorite wherever he's going now, right?
Yes. And if he wins this championship, this will be the first title for Fox Racing since AC Outdoors?
When was AC Outdoors? 19?
19.
What was Dunge's last Supercross title?
17.
Oh, jeez, it was that long ago. I thought you were going to say 18. I thought it was closer.
And Carmichael's was 06, in case you're wondering.
Yeah, that was a while ago. One last. Yes, you got Fox ready.
No, I don't. I think that is it. AC's outdoor title, because there certainly hasn't been a 451, and there's not been a PC title since Justin Hill. So who else would it be?
That's going to be it?
Yeah, well, let me tell you then, from preparation to testing, from anticipation to the start line, it all builds up to this, the gate drop. Just like pros and aspiring amateurs alike, the all-new MX-26 racewear collection is built for the build-up and beyond, with movement-conscious design and material choices, paired with thoughtful graphics that celebrate each individual performance and style. Each piece stands as a representation of the many moods of mayhem and expression found in the heat of battle. Deceptive calm to complete chaos. What will you unleash today? Thank you to Fox Racing for their support of this podcast. You had something to say?
Oh, I was going to say, any thought or comment on the front brakeless moto?
Yeah, it's impressive. Props, but is there much more to say than that?
Yep, that was it.
Okay.
I don't know. Some of it does suck when you try to battle guys without, but some of the individual lap times were impressive. They were arguing on the broadcast. Does he have a little bit of a front brake or no? It's like, no, he has no front brake.
Yeah, I mean, it adds to the Degan narrative. Like, it's a cool story, an element to lean on. Hammaker was great once again, second 2 weeks in a row. He has got royally screwed by the penalty for jumping on a red cross in Charlotte, because otherwise he would be ahead of Degan in the points, and he would be in a winner-takes-all scenario for the final. And Hammaker, if you tell me a winner-takes-all scenario, I think Hammaker could do that.
Yeah, I think if...
Because also... No, I was going to say, because also wouldn't it work that if Degan wins Hammaker second, Joe third, then Hammaker still wins? But I don't think it would, because the point difference between second and third wouldn't be great enough. So maybe it would have been difficult either way, but this has made it near impossible barring some sort of shenanigans. Sorry, are we keeping you up?
No, sorry, I randomly yawn way too much.
Okay, just want to make sure we're catering to you here. Thrasher was great all day. I wonder if there's something to Speedway Supercrosses. Faster, carry a bit more speed, similar to St. Louis.
Yeah, he touched on it. It was actually funny, a little bit of whether just didn't catch the full question or conveniently tried to ignore it, as JT asked him. Just basically, JT straight up said, how are you so good? To shorten up the question, it was, how are you so good sometimes and so completely inconspicuous other times? And he just kind of went more into recent, like, outdoors was rough, blah, blah, blah. But I feel at home when we're in not only Supercross, but he mentioned like Speedway, faster tracks, things like that. He feels more at home with. Completely skipped the part where JT asked him, like, why are you so good sometimes and just other times you're not?
Extremely impressed by Ty Masterpool out of the wildcard race as well. Fourth overall. That's great from him. Honestly, I don't think you can expect anything more than that. Fifth overall, Tom Vialle. Here we go. So, first moto was god-awful. Just terrible. It was Budds Creek first moto, very similar to that. Just dropping back, nothing there, riding around, similar to Chase in the second moto. So I asked him, is this another shock thing? He said no. He said his forks were so stiff, and it was they chose that setup, not a fault or anything. He ran that setup in qualifying, but different for one lap. The forks were so stiff that he essentially couldn't turn. He could have flat landed the finish and the bike wouldn't have moved. And the setup was so bad that he just couldn't do anything with it. So went much softer for the second moto, which is fairly plug and play, like self-explanatory. But this was the first time he's done interviews since Budds Creek. So we talked about the shock situation a little bit. He repeatedly said, I can't talk about that because I'll get in trouble. I can't say too much. Yeah, I wish I could tell you. There's a lot of things you guys don't know. So a lot of there is stuff going on that I can't tell you about.
So you're going to fly to the first GP next year and go, other side of the world, different team. Tell me about your shock last year.
But no, the fact that he did keep saying I wish I could tell you. There's stuff you guys don't know. Yeah, I wish I could talk about that. That
like
in
maybe
itself
it's
tells
the
you.
temperature, maybe it's this. I don't know, but I can't tell you.
Well, yeah, that tells you that there are issues behind the scenes, right? Like that tells you that like it's like, yeah, what the fuck is going on? But I did say to him like final question, as we've talked about. I said, to my knowledge, you were running the same shock outdoors as you did in MXGP. You never had a problem in MXGP. The MXGP guys aren't having a problem. Do you have any idea why? And again, he was like, yeah, we know from Europe they don't have problems, and I wish I could talk about that, but if otherwise I'll get in trouble. Like, you know, like it was very much like there is an issue here. He did say maybe it's the weather, but to that point, they just ran the Chinese Grand Prix in, I think, the hottest temperatures you can possibly get anywhere in the world, and no one had problems. In fact, KTM dominated both classes.
I take that perhaps it's the weather as a very sarcastic comment on his part.
Maybe actually.
I think I read that as very sarcastic. As one journalist told me after his Millville incident, Tom has nearly lost all faith in his equipment.
Yeah, I honestly, from what I know, I think Tom is very excited to get the hell out of America. I think he's excited for a fresh chapter, a new opportunity.
I would say I think it was a tough decision at first, and as the year has gone since that decision, I think it's much more like, okay, I made the right choice.
Yeah.
Because if even if he could have worked it out to stay, like he would have got the bare minimum of what he wanted to do 450s here with KTM, do you feel a little bit with what's continued there would be question marks and more stress related to like we still got to figure things out, like Chase departing his buddy, teammate, training partner, continued issues? I think that would put him in a worse. I don't think that would make that 450 transition as good as it could be for him. I think he, at the end of the day, has made the right choice for his career.
Well, yeah, ultimately, when a relationship is tainted like this, his first day on a KTM 450, it wouldn't have been like, new beginning, here we go, guys, let's figure this out. There would have been residual
lot of baggage.
And yeah, it would have already been in the back of his mind of like, so is this going to happen? Is this carry over? What about, you know, like, and in that opportunity, I think, or in that instance, I think it's important to just cut the cord and start afresh, which is ultimately what Chase and Tom are doing.
Isn't it crazy? Just little things like that. The difference between like RJ moving to 450, same tier, like new chapter, refresher, etc. Tom's would not be the same case.
Yeah, and I think Barsha's in the same boat as Chase and Tom.
Yeah.
I don't know where Malcolm sits. I mean, obviously he's going back, but I don't know if... I think he's in the RJ camp of fairly settled and comfortable. Just curious that there are such stark differences between riders who are essentially on the same equipment and in the same surroundings. But Tom Vialle won a moto, reminding everyone of just how good he is, which I think is important because I do think he's caught a lot of unnecessary flack and disrespect. I think people are forgetting just how good he is, indoors and out. 2-time Supercross champion. But that was Decal Works' only win in St. Louis, but a great one at that. And you can head to decalmx.com to customize your own graphics, figure out what you want your motorcycle to look like, and they will meet your demands. Get creative, run wild, go for that factory look, go for that very amateur look. Whatever you want, decalmx.com can cater. Jumping down here, Anstey was the only one doing the quad, but ultimately not the only one doing the quad. Ryder D and Davies were also, but I think Anstey was the most consistent with it. Davies on one lap only quadded to the inside, which was ultimately the best possible scenario. And Max told me that he didn't want to do that because it just seemed like risk versus reward, but he said if he was leading, he probably would have pulled the pin on that and just made it happen. The sectors were set quite well for this. So the rhythm section was its own sector and the sand was its own sector. Anstey was the fastest in the rhythm section sector in Moto 1, proving the quad was far superior because I think Davies was second as well. Yeah. And then Max was 12th in the sand. So the outside was just garbage. Yeah. Like it ended up pushing so far wide that it was almost like a joker lane going that far out wide. So yeah, what can you do? But yeah, and also Chase was in the first moto. Chase was outside in the sand every lap, and I think he was the only 450 rider going out there. He even went to the inside for one lap and then went back to the outside. Yeah,
the only time I felt like I saw the outside slightly working back to the best rise to the cream of the top is Jett chasing Eli towards the end of one race. He used it outside once or twice just to stay off of him, and it definitely wasn't he definitely could not make it faster. He definitely lost a tiny bit of time, but at least he maximized as good as possible. And I watched him in like that is about as damn fast as you could hit that in the world, and it's still slower.
Yeah. Anything else from 250s? I think I'm.
Yeah, I think it's kind of flat after that. I guess the only note was what Davies, what was it the first race he went down? Was he running he had a better pace, like he was better overall in one of the motos than the toss there was the second moto.
Honestly, I can't remember. I would guess second moto because that was the worst result.
Yeah.
But honestly, maybe controversial. There was a lot of Davies hype coming into SMX, and like, yes, he was great in Supercross, but this is about what I expected. I think the hype train got far loose and out of control.
I expected somewhere in the middle, not podium, not winning, but somewhere in the middle. I would have thought we'd be maybe more Jordan. I don't know, just a little more consistency because he seemed to be more consistent. Like towards the end of Supercross, he was a little more solid than this. It's been a little more up and down. One now skew, and I've mentioned this the last few weeks quite a bit. Masterpool, 4-6, fourth overall. Any movement. I've not heard a single comment about his future, a team interest, anything. I felt like the two riders under the dark cloud that have no hope in 250s have been him and Mumford, and even Mumford's had some progress in the last couple days of where he could end up. I haven't heard anything related to Ty.
No, I haven't either. And honestly, like, what sort of team takes a chance on him? Like, a PRMX, do you take a chance or do you go, or are the chances of it going poorly just so high that it's not worth the risk? I think that's where I would be at.
I don't know, even when like PRMX are so ingrained in Ford, all the riders have to be there. That's where I instantly just go,
Exactly.
Seems like hard no. It seems like a hard no. I just don't even think it would get started.
So are we confident that if Ty gets nothing, which it seems like it's going that way, that he goes the privateer route and do we just continue going in cycles of privateer gets a ride, or at some point does he call it?
The hard one is he goes privateer again, has some backers, it works out. We have great performances like we did a couple years ago. The only group, but I think there's a split on it. There was some comments more from the KTM Europe side about do they take a chance on him, but there was some support given to him through an effort before, and the US side didn't seem as excited about even attempting that. However, I think me and you actually talked about this. The only thing I could see panning out is depending how bad Juju's burst fracture recovery is. I mean, right now, KTM theoretically may not have a guy for next year in 250s. Power Sports team might be their kind of sole representation in the class outside of the Rockstar Husky guys, sister brand. That's the only thing I can see happening. And still, is that SX only? Are they comfortable waiting for Juju? If Juju's recovery is really long, like J-Mart's, maybe an outdoor only thing?
Honestly, potentially, KTM will have Tomac, Prado, who are quite demanding riders. Obviously, there's going to be a lot to work through with both of them. Why would you add a distraction like Masterpool, which ultimately is, to put it bluntly, a waste of time? I think you just say we need to funnel everything into these guys.
Yeah, I think they only do that if they think there's any chance in hell of it going somewhere in the future. You don't do it just to put the bike on track again. They'll have brand representation. They've got another factory effort. I think they will be predominantly a 450 team next year. They kind of already were going to be. They have the commitment to Juju. They're going to keep building that, but they're going to have their hands full in the 450 class.
Yes, indeed. Right. That has been another episode.
Faulkner, how bad? Heard. What did you hear at the end of the night on Austin? How bad the knee stitch?
He's getting MRIs this week. Initial prognosis, everyone seemed quite concerned, and I didn't hear anyone say this will be fine. I mean, he put on Instagram that he expects it to just be meniscus, and I feel like if he's going public with that, he must be fairly confident. I don't know. It's gonna suck if it's something serious because all of the momentum goes away, and 2026 becomes a rebuilding year. He won't be 100% whenever he starts racing. It just ruins everything.
I mean, they're another team though. Even if it's minor, I mean that pretty much puts the stamp in it that Jalik would be West Coast and Austin East if there's any sizable recovery time whatsoever.
Yeah, because those would be the only 250 riders.
Correct. Unless they decide to keep Jordan, unless they end up in a situation where Jordan does stay down for Supercross on a 250.
So, as I said, I asked Jordan at Budds Creek, and he said he wants to go 450 for Supercross, but it's not been decided yet. So I said to him last night, I said, any movement, 450 in Supercross, yes or no? And he just went, we'll have news on that soon. So I presume that means he's done deal 450.
Yeah,
because
as far as I'm aware, yeah.
So, yeah, interesting times, but hopefully Faulkner is okay.
Volin elbow, I think Curie posted.
Yeah,
just
dislocated. Elbows scare me. I don't know if I'm dramatic with elbows, but an elbow injury to me seems very, very serious.
I mean, ACs triggers a lot of it, but yeah, anybody I can think of that's had an elbow injury in the last couple of years, it seems it has a decent chance of having lasting effects with nerves and things in the area. It definitely doesn't seem to be always a straightforward one. It definitely bothered. When I see that, I freak out more when I see somebody have an elbow issue than a knee issue by far.
No, I agree. I just think elbows are much more temperamental, aren't they?
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you for watching and listening and to another episode of the Vialle MX post-race show, St. Louis edition. A lot to get into, a lot to discuss. Hopefully your quest for knowledge from Missouri has been answered, and if not, ask us a question on social media or figure something out to that effect. But we will see you in 7 days' time to discuss the 2025 SMX World Championship Finals. See you then.